All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Deric, and I'm very pleased to be here. And we thank the organizers of the Ghana Digital Innovation Week for giving us the opportunity to have this important dialogue and also workshop for us to learn, meet as industry stakeholders, connect, and start an important conversation that has been left behind for many, many years. And I hope that even as the Vice President and the stakeholders are driving a strong digitization agenda for this country, we would ensure that accessibility is part of the conversation. And so this morning, we are here to have a workshop and learn and also share on accessibility in Ghana's digital ecosystem. Right, so I'll start by just sharing what we hope to achieve by the end of the workshop, and then I'll give the format of the workshop, and then we'll begin. All right, so the objectives of the workshop is we hope that we can have an understanding of what accessibility is. And accessibility cuts across many, many, many areas. In fact, everything in this world, now you have to think about accessibility. But for the purpose of this conference, we are going to be looking at digital accessibility. And then we also hope that we would understand the accessibility landscape, the digital accessibility landscape in Ghana. What is happening? Is there anything happening at all? And what are the lessons? What are the achievements? What are the challenges? And then we'll also examine the opportunities and consequences of the kind of landscape we have on accessibility. What we'll also do is to take a close look at digital accessibility and some of the gaps that persons with disabilities are facing with accessibility in Ghana. And then finally, also most importantly, would go away with some tips. So if you are here, you represent an organization, you work with an organization, and we talk a lot about accessibility, but your question is, what really can I do to ensure that my website is accessible, or my mobile app is accessible, or my company presentations are accessible, or my documents are accessible? We hope that by the end of the session, you'll be able to live with some very practical tips. Right. So this is going to be the format of the workshop. It's a 2-hour-long workshop with a break. Sorry, I'm going to be coughing a bit, but trust me, I don't have COVID. And then, so I'll start by introducing Tech Era and talking about Tech Era and also just some background introduction into accessibility. And then we'll have an expert dialogue session on accessibility in Ghana and some of the experiences of persons with disabilities and people who need, who rely on accessibility. What are their experiences with the Ghana ecosystem? Then we'll have a short break, and then we'll do the practical session on some tips, website tips. How do you ensure that you are able to create alt text or have focus, or ensure color contrast, some tips on how to make your website and web pages accessible. All right. So I'll start by telling you a bit about Tech Era. I am Deric, and I am the CEO of Tech Era. And Tech Era is a social enterprise. We are a technology-based social enterprise, and we are committed to one thing: ensuring that Africa is developing in an inclusive way. We acknowledge that there is development in Africa, but we also identify a lot of gaps in terms of accessibility gaps. We identify so many people left behind in education, in healthcare, in water resources, in other areas. And so what we have committed to doing is ensuring that if Africa is developing, then we must develop in an inclusive way. And so we are committed to using technology to bridge all these inaccessible gaps or accessibility gaps that are currently available. And when we talk about accessibility gaps, we can talk about it in education. For example, when you walk into an inclusive school and you have a child with autism, how are we going to ensure that that child with autism can have access to quality inclusive education? By providing them with the right technologies, by helping the school set up systems that can help the child. So we create technologies, we provide digital skill training, we provide accessibility consultancy to corporate organizations, locally and internationally. And then we also, I've forgotten what's the last thing we do. We also facilitate international partnerships. So there are certain things that we believe are important to drive development in Ghana, or there are certain solutions that we think that can help people reach certain limits that are not available. We're able to facilitate these partnerships to ensure that those who really need them can have access to them. And then I'll share an example of that. So just to give you, if you're wondering, okay, all these things, what does this mean? This is just a quick highlight of some of the things you've done. So we have provided digital skill training for over 2,500 persons with disabilities. Our educational products are used by over 10,000 children with and without disabilities in Ghana. We just launched a partnership or secured a partnership with a Singaporean tech giant. Okay. We just launched a partnership or secured a partnership with a Singaporean tech giant to solve the global problem of myopia. What you should know is that by 2030, 1 out of 2 people will have myopia in the world. How are we going to ensure that children who are now always on their phone, digital ecosystem is useful, but it can also cause some health challenges. And one of them is myopia. Currently in Ghana, 1 out of 6 children or young people have myopia. So how are we going to ensure that using technology, we can help people whilst they use technology, but do not end up getting myopia? And so we saw this opportunity, and we have been able to secure this partnership where we are going to do myopia education in over 6,000 schools, reaching about 1 million children, and also providing the Plano app for households and parents to use. And so that's how we intend to tackle myopia across Africa. And so that's something that we are doing to ensure that people have access. And then finally, we are hoping to launch a new product, which is a digital accessible water ecosystem manager. And what this basically does is, almost everyone seated here, if you have a house in a residential area, you have a poly tank, water is a problem. But if someone is elderly or the person is a wheelchair user and the person runs out of water, the person will have to sit in the wheelchair to go and fetch water. It's not accessible, right? Or sometimes you're in the shower and then you realize that your water is finished. You're now going to climb your poly tank to go and hit it. It's not accessible. We have created a simple technology that allows you to measure your water level on your phone. And when your water is running out, it gives you a notification, and then you can order for water so that you always have access to water. You never run out of water. We are hoping to launch this in December. And so these are the different ways by which we are bridging accessibility gaps. And there are many other ways, but these are just a few. So I'll zoom straight into why we are here. So again, we are here to discuss accessibility. And what is accessibility? I just want to pass this blank sheet around. Forget about what is on the other side. I'm passing a blank sheet around. And I'll ask a question. Just pass the blank sheet. No, don't turn, just this side. Just pass the blank sheet around. I'll ask a question after, so just pass the blank sheet around. But what we should know before we even start this conversation is 1 out of 5 people in our world today has a disability. And this is a significant number and cannot be ignored. 1 out of 5 people in our world today have a disability. But what we should also know is that a lot of times we just identify disability by what is visible. But a lot of us are not aware of invisible disabilities, right? And for us to have conversation on accessibility, it's important to appreciate that we have visible disabilities, we have invisible disabilities. And we also have different types of other types of disabilities like temporal disabilities and age-related disabilities. We should bring in mind that at one point in our lives, we will become disabled, whether we like it or not. If you are lucky enough to become old, you will definitely become disabled at one point in your life. Can you point to maybe a mother or a grandmother or an auntie or an uncle who is aging and is slowly losing his or her sight, or is now relying on a walking stick, or is now relying on some help? It is not their fault. It's just age. It's just what life is. But sometimes too, Maybe you were stepping out and then you hit your leg against a stone. For some moments, you may not be able to walk very well with your two legs. That's a temporal disability. So everybody at some point becomes disabled, and which is why this conversation is important for us. Now, the reason why I passed the paper forward is, imagine being given a blank paper like that. All right? Being given a blank paper like that. Just imagine yourself, and I ask you what information is on there. It's the same way when I give a newspaper to Sarah, who is visually impaired. She will not know anything on the newspaper. Right? At that point, the newspaper, even though it may contain very important information about COVID-19, which can save her health or which can protect her life, it's not accessible to her. Just the same way that blank paper, maybe there is some bank contract or some $1 million on it that you could have accessed, but it's blank, you know. And that is what accessibility is. How do we ensure that everything in our world can be accessed without it being limited to someone because of their disability? So, to take a step further in accessibility and the conversation, we want to base this on a certain theoretical foundation. There are several models of disability. What we are very familiar with in Ghana is the medical model of disability, where we identify people with disability based on their medical diagnosis. That the person is a wheelchair user, or the person has been diagnosed with autism, or the person has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy, or the person, you know, we point fingers because this person is using a braille, a cane, because the person is blind. But there is this other model which I want us to really think about that is being advocated around the world. And it says that the society must create inclusive environment for all. Why? Because it is a society that makes people disabled. And that is the social model that we want to be able to use as the foundation for having a conversation on accessibility. Why is this necessary? I can give you an example. Imagine you are watching, you are in school, you are in a class, and you go to the market because your mom has sent you to get something very important. But in the marketplace, because of the noise, you are not able to follow, you are not able to hear the lecturer whilst you are watching the video on your phone. At that point, the noise prevents you from hearing the sound that is ongoing. So what do? You rely on captions. Similarly, how many of us have watched the Squid Games? Good. Squid Games was created in the Korean language, right? Imagine you watching it in that language and you didn't understand it. At that point, you become disabled. Why? Because you cannot understand or have access to the information you need. But they provided captions to make it accessible. So what the social model basically says is that people are not disabled because of their state, but people become disabled because the society has not created enabling environments for them. For example, if a wheelchair user comes here and the wheelchair user wants to access this workshop, and the workshop, they are not maybe a ramp. I usually don't like to use ramp because ramp is the lowest form of accessibility, right? But let's say that there is no ramp. The person is not able to come for the workshop, not because the person is disabled. We have made the person disabled because we've not created access for the person to be able to come in here. Right? And that's what the social model points out. But to give you a better clarity, I'll show you this video.
Imagine a town full of physically impaired people, all wheelchair users. They run everything. There aren't any able-bodied people, so naturally, when they built the town, the community decided it was pointless to have ceilings 10 foot high and doors 7.
Oh, sorry. A moment, please. Okay. All right.
Imagine a town full of physically impaired people, all wheelchair users. They run everything. There aren't any able-bodied people, so naturally, when they built the town, the community decided it was pointless to have ceilings 10 foot high and doors 7 foot high. So the ceilings were built at 7 foot and the doors at 5 foot. In every way, they designed the place the way they wanted it. One day, a few able-bodied people come to stay. One of the first things they notice is the height of the doors. And the reason they notice is because they keep hitting their heads. They come to stand out by the bruises they carry on their foreheads. Soon doctors, psychiatrists and social workers all become involved. Committees are formed. Many people are worried about what becomes known as the problem of the able-bodied. Throughout the town there is a growth of real concern. Specially toughened helmets are handed out, free to the able-bodied, to be worn at all times. Braces are designed which give support and relief, while keeping the able-bodied wearer bent to normal height. Various groups of compassionate wheelchair users get together and form registered charities. Every quarter they have a collection day. Upturned helmets are left in pubs and shops for people to drop their small change into. There is talk of founding special homes. But then one day, it dawns on the able-bodied that there is nothing actually wrong with them, just that society excludes them.
All right, so what does this remind us of? Does this sound familiar? It sounds very familiar in our world today. That is what we have done. On the other hand, we've turned the conversation because the society has made people disabled. You know, now we are creating charities and creating all sort of things. It carries a very strong message. I won't stay too long on that. Yeah. So just I hope that gave you an idea of what the social model of disability means. That people are not disabled because of what they've been diagnosed as, or because...
According to the medical model of disability, the word disabled means less able. Less able to achieve your potential, less able to...
All right, sorry. So people have become disabled because of the society. And similarly, it's the same for the digital ecosystem. We are very fortunate to have access to internet. We have access to mobile phones, such that materials and resources which were not usually accessible to persons with disabilities can now be accessible to persons with disabilities. When I pass the blank sheet around, just like how there was nothing on it, it's the same thing when you give a newspaper to a visually impaired person. That's how the person will feel. But now information can be available online, and persons with disabilities like blind person, low vision person, visually impaired persons, persons with arthritis, and persons who need support online, they can have access to these materials. But sadly, our digital ecosystem is not accessible for people who need to access these materials, to access them. And so today, we have someone in our midst who will be taking us through her personal experience as a visually impaired person. And I know very little of her story, but she told me that she wasn't blind from birth. So I'm just curious to find out a few things. What was her experience before when she was sighted, and now that she's visually impaired, just to understand the digital ecosystem in Ghana for persons who really need accessibility to be able to have access to information. So today we'll be speaking to Sarah. All right. Okay, Sarah, please, you may have to come forward. You can sit. You can come to your left. Yeah, the chair is there. You can sit there. All right. So today we are speaking to Sarah. Sarah, can you tell us about yourself?
Okay. Thank you very much.
You have to speak louder.
Okay. Thank you very much. So my name is Sarah Kekeli Akuno, and I'm 25 years of age. And I'm also looking forward to going back to school this year. So I actually applied for the University of Ghana this year. Well, with my experience, before my vision deteriorated, I was short-sighted, but I was okay with glasses. So it was okay for me. I was able to use the phone, to use the internet on the phone. The only thing I avoided was laptops, because the cursor, sometimes I don't see the cursor. But with my glasses, I was able to do everything like a normal person.
I just want to highlight. So one, she said she was short-sighted and she avoided the laptop because she could not see the cursor. A lot of times we assume that everybody uses the internet like we do. So clearly, one point you can take away is that not everybody can see the mouse or the cursor. So I just want to highlight that.
Yes. So when my vision started deteriorating around senior high school, but then I thought it was my glasses that was not really good. So during WASI, I registered as someone who can see, but I had challenges writing the exams, but I was able to finish. So fast forward, I changed my glasses and things were still the same. I wasn't seeing how I was supposed to see. Now, I was asking myself questions like, how do I go to school? I'm growing. How will I be able to get a job? Because mostly after senior high school, everybody wants to get a job before they go to school. And here lies the case. My movements became limited. I couldn't go anywhere without anybody's assistance. Couldn't cross the road. I couldn't, at a point, using my phone became so difficult that I had to bring the phone very close to my face before I could use it. So I didn't know anything about there being any facility where you can learn something, and another way you can access internet or anything digital.
I just want to also point out that from experience, there is lack of education on accessibility in Ghana. Also, there are many inaccessible gaps in education and also infrastructure. When someone loses her sight, how to even step out, because our environment is not accessible. And this is something that there's a conversation that is already happening. So it's not even something I have to emphasize on. All right. So give us an example of what you could typically do when you had short-sightedness and when you lost all your sight, what you realized you could not do again in terms of your mobile phone usage, or in terms of being online, using your digital devices.
So before my sight deteriorated, I was able to use my phone very well. But after it started deteriorating, I had difficulty, and I didn't have any idea there was even an inbuilt software on smartphones called maybe VoiceOver for Apple and then TalkBack for Android. Until I went to Ghana Blind Union. That was when I was educated on how to use the computer with the speech software, and also how to use the phone. I was told that there is an inbuilt software on the phone called VoiceOver because I was using an Apple phone. So it became easier for me because of the speech software. But at a point, I realized that, and with the laptop too, using the JAWS, it's called JAWS, it's a speech software on the laptop. That's how come I'm able to access a laptop, because now I can't read hard copy, I can't write on hard copy. I have to rely on technology, something digital like a phone or a laptop.
So we'll get into the details of what is JAWS, how do blind persons use JAWS. We'll demonstrate that today. But even though these are resources available, the JAWS, the VoiceOver, the TalkBack, these are technologies that help content to be accessible to blind persons. Were there still challenges with buying something online or doing something because of how the platform has been created that prevented JAWS from identifying it? Can you tell us about that?
Please. So one time in school, my instructor told us to open a website. We were learning about internet. So I realized that I opened the website and then the video started playing. I didn't know how to now just stop talking because the website was not accessible. So I didn't even know what was going on the website. So there are some websites and even applications on phones that are not accessible. As much as there is voiceover, if on the application, when you open it, it will stop talking. When you tap on something, it will give you a feedback. It doesn't. It's not accessible. Some apps here, even in Ghana, are not accessible.
All right, so that's good to know. But and I can talk about this even in terms of banking. There are so many banking platforms that are not accessible to many persons with disabilities. But that's another conversation we'll get into. But what has this cost? What's the cost to you? Inaccessible apps in Ghana that you need. What are some of the costs to you?
Okay, so an example. If I want to make a transaction, like mobile money, for example, now with the short code *170#, before the speech software will finish reading what is on the menu, it's timeout. Fine. So there is the MTN app also that you can use for transactions, but it's not very accessible. So now it costs me my privacy because I'll have to call somebody to do my transactions for me. And then the MTN policy, nobody is supposed to know your mobile money PIN because someone can take money from it without your knowledge. So now it can also cost me financially if the person I ask for help is not trustworthy, can later take my phone and then steal from me. So it has cost me my privacy, and sometimes it's frustrating, and you start feeling inferior because something that everybody is able to do, you are not able to do because even the apps that are supposed to help you out are not accessible.
Wow, that's very interesting insights here. So what do you think businesses should do about accessibility for you as a visually impaired woman and as a student? Should businesses be concerned?
Yes, they should be concerned because in Ghana, as in 2018, 1% of the population is visually impaired. That's about 200 and something thousand people. Now, if your apps are not accessible, let's take the bank apps, for example. If they are not accessible, you will lose customers because they are not, because mobility is an issue already. So if they can't sit in the comforts of their homes and access the bank apps or access some applications, you will lose. The business will lose financially. And then it's like, I have the right to also have accessibility. So it's like, you are also infringing on my rights because I'm not able to access the application that you have created. So both of us are going to be at the losing end.
Wow, that's very interesting. Please, can we give you a hand as I walk her back to her seat? Thank you so much, Sarah. And I hope that during this workshop, we can get to answer some of these questions. Yes, that's your seat. We can get to answer some of these questions and investigate further. But I am hoping that the experience is shedding some light on the accessibility landscape. But today, we also have in our midst a very, very important person. She's a tech leader in Ghana, very well known. But also, most importantly, she is a disability advocate. And so she is somewhat the perfect person for our conversation today. So we would like to ask her a few questions on the accessibility landscape in Ghana and where we are and how we can progress. So please, let's welcome Farida Bedouin. Thank you so much, Farida, for joining us today. I don't think that is working because of the cable. Yeah, so I'll hold the microphone. All right. Thank you very much. Please, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we just want to continue the conversation Sarah started. But before I even ask any question, is there anything you want to share from what we have discussed so far?
Well, the video that you shared, it made me laugh because that is exactly what we go through every day. And I've always subscribed to the theory of social disability, because as far as I'm concerned, the society disables us more than our disability actually disables us. I went to university in the UK, and believe me, I was fully independent there. I could go grocery shopping, I could go to the bar, I could do everything on my own. Because the society has been built up to make people with disabilities as independent as possible. So they don't necessarily have to live with their caregiver for the rest of their life. But when it comes to Africa and Ghana and most other African countries, that is not the case. And it's because I think, for me, my perception is that they don't see people with disability as contributing members of society. So they don't see why they should invest in us. And that leads me back to what Sarah said about businesses not investing in accessibility apps, because they don't see the market. And I mean, as a business person myself, I would invest in something that I know that there's no market for, especially if you are a for-profit making entity, and that is the hard and fast truth. So until we can prove that yes, we have spending power and we can contribute positively to society, we'll continue to be in this state. And it's kind of a chicken and egg situation, because we need these tools to be able to go to school and work before we can start contributing to our society. And yet society is saying that because we don't have this educational level, and we are not earning this amount of money, they are not going to invest in those tools. So it's a bit of a difficult situation for us, especially in a society where there's not that much money. So obviously the government will prioritize what will bring them income. And for a long time, disability issues have been seen as corporate social responsibility. And corporate social responsibility is like, okay, when you finish everything and there's money left over, then we'll look at you. And that should change. It's about time we became part of the main agenda and not the corporate social responsibility.
Wow, that's very, very important. But so it seems like you've given us a good background of why the whys of where we are in terms of accessibility. But just to give it a number, how would you rate it over 10 in terms of Ghana's digital ecosystem and accessibility?
3. Yeah, and that is being generous.
that's
very generous.
But you mentioned that businesses have not integrated accessibility as part of their key processes because of the issue of profitability. But earlier, during the conversation, we understood that everybody becomes disabled at some point. Do you think that businesses are not aware of the opportunities of creating accessible products and services, and even accessibility in their workspaces? And are there even opportunities for businesses who prioritize accessibility?
So yeah, what it is the issue of businesses investing in accessibility is very new, very, very new, and right now it's mainly the multinationals who are making that effort. Local businesses are still not concerned about any of these things, because I mean they are like, how many blind people how many visually impaired people will even look at my website? Why should I go through that process of getting somebody to make it accessible for them and all? So that thing has to change, and that can only change if we have data on the number of visually impaired people there are in this country, the number who are working, the number who are in school, because obviously when they get the education that they need, then they'll join the workforce and all those things. And the thing is, without data on this thing, we are basically fighting blind, because you have nothing to show that, oh, if you do this, then this will happen. And business, and as I said, businessmen are all for profit. So what will make my business profitable and all? Now, what was the other question?
That what are some of the opportunities for them if they make their websites accessible or their software accessible?
Well, as Sarah said, I mean, honestly, I'll be the first person to say that, and it never even occurred to me that USSD will not be accessible. I mean, it didn't even cross my mind. And I'm somebody with a disability myself. I have problems with USSD once in a while because I may not be able to click the thing fast enough to be able to do the transaction. But I've managed to master it. But somebody with a visual impairment, it will be very difficult for that person to do that. Now, if you go to MTN and you tell them that, look, there are 200,000 people with visual impairment who are not able to transact mobile money because your app is not accessible. Due to that, you are losing X amount of money. That will make them shut up. But if you go to them and tell them that, oh, Sarah and some other people are complaining that they cannot answer the app, there are over 10 million people who can answer the app. So unless they are not doing it for charitable reasons, it will not make economic sense to them. So it is all about the data and the numbers. I mean, it's a numbers game. So I'm like, look, we have to beat them at a game. You have to show them that yes, we have these numbers, we have this spending power, and it's worth their while to invest in this system. Because as long as it is not mandated by law, believe me, the uptake will be very slow. I remember now there are some countries like France. For France, they have a policy which says that 3% of your workforce should comprise the people with disabilities. If you cannot meet that policy, then you pay a fine. And that fine goes into a fund to pay for accessible devices for children in the schools. So unless we can do something like that in this country, I don't think they will be able to move at the pace at which we want.
It's interesting because your argument about cost benefit profitability is important, but even in some advanced countries like the US, it is always beyond that. They talk about law. Now in the US, if your website is not accessible, you can be sued, and you have a huge legal battle to fight for, right? So the law is working. Ghana has signed the UNCRPD. What is preventing us? Because we said we want to make sure that everything is accessible. We want to make sure that our education is accessible. What has prevented the government or the stakeholders who are in this ecosystem to ensure that we are making this legal so that our ecosystem is accessible to everyone? Every child in school should be able to learn and should not have, for example, if we distribute laptops to every child, and there are children who have difficulty accessing learning content on the website. That is not that's not a good thing. So why do you think that the government is not putting legal measures in place?
In Ghana, our problem is we have the best policies, but implementation is always a problem, and I think that is the main problem here. I mean, and the political motivation to do it. I mean, if as I said, let's face it, what will they gain from doing that they are not already gaining? I mean, why should they do it? I mean, let's put aside the question of it's the right thing to do. I mean, we all know the right thing to do. A large section of the population are not getting access to education or to the workforce, and as Sarah said, when you have a disability, it's very difficult to move around in this country. I'm lucky enough to be independent enough to have a car and a driver. Otherwise, I'll be fully reliant on the goodness of my caregiver, whoever that is. And that shouldn't be the case. I mean, the buses, our transportation systems and all should be accessible. But if the government doesn't think that they will get anything directly from making the country accessible, we'll continue to be in this situation. I mean, fine. There have been a few concessions. I mean, they have the disability common fund. They have the LEAP fund. These are all social interventions. Some of the new government buildings are a bit accessible, but at the end of the day, it is not enough. And until it becomes a priority of whoever the head of state is, we will continue to be in this situation. The various ministries and things, they are kind of I think they are relying on the CSOs to come up with a framework and all. But the CSOs today, I mean, it's like a whole new ball game for them. And we actually passed the Disability Act back in 2005. Up to now, up to when, about how many years ago, we still haven't even done the airline to implement it, because nobody has sat down and said that, okay, these are the laws, these are the measures we have to put in place to make sure that this act is implemented, because disability is such a broad area, and it's something that if you are not looking at it holistically and in its entirety, what you may end up doing is you may focus on disability and leave the other behind. So and that is what often happens with the various disability organizations, because they are looking at their specific disability. They are just, so because I have cerebral palsy, I do not know what Sarah and the visually impaired people go through, or those who are hearing impaired. I know what I go through. So if I'm fighting for something, I'll fight for something that will make my life easier. Because I mean, and my challenges are different from her challenges. So until we can have, and that is where organizations like the Ghana Federation for the Disabled, which is the umbrella organization of the various disability groups, comes in by consulting all the various disability groups and coming up with a uniform plan and other things for people with disabilities in the country.
But and we'll be wrapping up soon, but there is the World Content Accessibility Guidelines. They are standards that are in the world. And accessibility is not for a specific group. It's for everybody. And when I talk personally, I don't talk about accessibility in line with disability, because I believe that everybody at some point needs accessibility. Similarly, if you are wearing glasses, glasses are assistive technologies that ensures that information is accessible. So everybody needs accessibility. So it's beyond, individual disabilities. And you also talk about how the government definitely is not motivated enough. But what do you think as private sector? We are having the Ghana Digital Innovation Week. They are small. This is something that is growing. Digitization is growing. We are talking about digitization. This is the opportunity to ensure that we get it right. What practical steps do you think that we should take to ensure that as we are on this drive towards digitization, we don't leave accessibility out?
So, with regard to the private sector, once again, it's a numbers game. We have to be able to show them that, look, there are these people, there are this number of people with disabilities. Let's say if there are a million people with some form of visual impairment, you have to show them that, look, out of that 10 million people, there's a potential for you to get 20% of them as customers. And because your website is not accessible or your app is not accessible, you are losing out on that. And because of that, you are losing X amount of revenue. Then it makes sense for them. Otherwise, they'll just treat it as corporate social responsibility, and as they have been doing their whole life. And with regard to the web accessibility guidelines, honestly, I am a software engineer, and until recently, I didn't bother to make my web system accessible to people with disabilities. So if even me with a disability wasn't thinking about those things, how much more the average person who has a company and all that. I remember there was a law firm who wanted to make their website accessible. So I referred them to someone, and I referred them to you, right? No, okay. So I referred them to someone, and I gave the person guidelines on what it will take, the color changes and all. And they looked at it and understood it was too much work, because they are like, I mean, how many visually impaired people will be coming to the website? So, I mean, for them to actually change the whole color scheme just because some people cannot see it, it doesn't make business sense to them, because it affects their logo and all those things. So, I mean, you have to be realistic about some of these things. But if you could tell them, if you could prove to them that, yes, if they had done that, they would have gotten so many people with visual impairment who are potential customers or potential clients, then it makes sense to them.
Wow, please let's give Farida her hand for this wonderful session. Yeah, and I hope that you stay with us as we go on, because we'll have a more like question and answer session where we'll cover some of these areas. Right. But before we go for the break, I just wanted to touch on the World Content Accessibility Guideline. So this is basically a world standard guideline that has been created to guide us in developing web content, ensuring that our web content is accessible. Not only website, not only apps, but also documentation. How do we ensure that our documents are accessible? Even when we are organizing events. So, for example, this conference, typically there should be a sign language interpreter. How do we ensure that our events are accessible? The documentation, right? And she also mentioned the fonts, the color, the contrast. How do you ensure that some of these things are accessible? So the World Content Accessibility Guidelines has come up with a list of guidelines that ensures that websites are accessible. And there are 4 key principles that I want to touch on before we just have a short break, and then we'll resume with a more practical session where we'll see how a low vision or a blind person uses a website, the apps they use, the software that guides them, the challenges that they go through. And I just want to mention quickly that when we talk about accessibility, again, it's not only about persons with disabilities, but it's about everyone. Because if you remember, I mentioned that we have age-related disability, which means that, sorry, I'll be using this slide. We have the age-related disability, which means that at some point in our lives, we will age. At some point in our lives, we become disabled. And so it's important to take note of that. Right, so I want to just touch on the 4 key principles with the World Content Accessibility Guideline. The first one is perceivable. What this basically means is that when you are thinking about developing an accessible website or accessible application, have in mind that people are not only seeing the content. Some people may listen to the content. Some people may have to touch the content. Right? So there are different ways. Now you need to ask yourself as a developer or as a policy maker or as a leader in your organization, how are we ensuring not only your website but your information that you are creating is accessible to those who need to hear it, those who need to touch it? You may be thinking, who will need to touch information? I can give you an example. If you have a deaf-blind person, a deaf-blind person who cannot hear and cannot also see, the person will rely on what we call the refreshable braille, which prints out information when they are online. So when they are using a website, the refreshable braille reads out the information in braille dots. That way the person will be feeling. Now, how do you ensure that your website is created in a way that they can be able to use the refreshable braille? Similarly, if you have someone who is visually impaired, the person will rely on speech software to access the website. How do you ensure that the website is speech software compatible, right? And there are many things that you can do, which we'll teach you during this workshop. The next principle is operable. Here, it basically says that not everybody uses the computer like you. There are some people who may use the mouse. There are some people who don't use the mouse at all. For example, if you have a mother with arthritis and the person cannot see the mouse, the person at that point is not blind, but they cannot see the mouse. Therefore, the touchpad becomes useless. So they will have to rely on keyboard. Now, what you need to ask yourself is, can someone use only the keyboard to navigate my website or only the keyboard to navigate my app? If you have an e-commerce site, and let's say one time, maybe I'm cooking, I use my hand to touch a very hot spot. Because of that, I can't hold the mouse or I can't use the mouse pad. Can I use the keyboard to buy something on your website? So you realize that there are so many people who are not able to buy things on your website or use your e-commerce website, not because they are disabled, but because maybe at that point in time, they were carrying their baby. So they wanted to use their voice recognition. But because your website is not compatible with voice recognition, you missed a customer. Right? And the point about 20% of customers being disabled is actually a fact. 20 to 25% of your customers are disabled. And not only visually impaired, they may be disabled by being elderly persons. They may be disabled by being short-sighted. So the person will have to get close to see what is on your website. You know, so if the font sizes are not accessible or your website is not compatible with softwares that maybe low vision persons use, then it means that you are missing a customer, right? So operable basically says that not everybody uses your website or uses the computer like you do. So you have to think about how people can use touchpad, how people can use keyboard, how people can even use, for example, the touch screen. You know, on the mouse, some of us, when we create websites, we create actions like hover. You use the cursor and then it creates a certain interactive feature. What if someone is using a touch screen? Can they still be able to perform that function? So you have to think about that. And then the last two is understandable. A lot of times we use very, very complex jargons and words that are not very understandable. And so we have to think about it in everything we do, in preparing for a presentation, in sharing a document. How are you ensuring that your content is understandable? And here we can also look at it, the length of when you create a web page, the length. So you shouldn't have more than 120 words on one line, because if someone needs to zoom in, the person will have to scroll and scroll and scroll and may miss the meaning of what they are reading. And we'll demonstrate it. Some of these things, when we demonstrate it, you will understand it better. And then the robustness here, a lot of people, when they build websites, they don't use the right header tags. you don't use the right semantics, you don't consider a lot of things. You go to a website and then you realize that there are no headers that give structure to the website. A lot of users, they don't see the website the way you see it. So they navigate with headers. So when they go there, instead of going through everything, they'll just go to the header page and then, okay, header 1, home, header 2, about us. Then they just go to header 2, about us, and then it will lead them straight to about us. But if you have not used the right tags and the right semantics, then it means that people cannot navigate your website. And we'll demonstrate that in a bit. All right. So we'll take just a 2-minute break whilst Mr. Abbotti, who works with the Ghana Blind Union as the assistive technology trainer, will demonstrate. He is low vision, right? If I'm wrong, he's low vision. He's going to show us a typical experience of what an inaccessible website is, how it prevents him from accessing information, and how he uses certain apps so that we have a clear overview of what accessibility is from the digital perspective. So let's just take a 1 or 2 minute short break whilst Abbotti comes to. All right, so in about 5 minutes, we'll start the session on the practical session. And then when Mr. Abbotti would demonstrate how a low vision blind person uses web pages, softwares, and some of the inaccessible web pages in Ghana, and some of the accessible web pages, and how it helps businesses. And then from there, we'll have the head of accessibility at Tech Era teach us practical tips on how to make sure that your website is accessible. And in our conversation with Farida, she mentioned that the law firm thought that it was too much for them to ensure that their websites are accessible. But sometimes it's just very small tips that we need to ensure that our websites are accessible. And Tech Era is also here as an organization to support organizations, not only in terms of websites, but also in your documentation across the company, in your communication materials, among other things. All right, so we'll be starting our session. I think we should just start. We should just continue with it, if that's okay. All right, so please, you can start. Can you tell us about yourself first, and then we'll continue?
Okay. I'm Mati Abbotti, and I work with Ghana Blind Union as access technology trainer. So myself, I have low vision or visual impairment. So though I can see you there, but I don't have detailed vision. I can see your face. So when I take a paper, print paper like this, I can see there's something written on it, but I can't actually read it because I don't have detailed vision. But like Deric was saying, it's like it's a hidden disability. You may not know that that person has some handicap or disability. Okay, so with that, we use a lot of assistive technology to have access to information. So we talk about assistive technology for visual impairment, those who are totally blind, who have low vision. I think the same applies to other disability because basically we use keyboard navigations. We don't really use mouse, so it's almost the same thing. Okay, so to access information or digital platform, we use screen reader software or screen magnification software. Okay, for the screen reader, like the name says, it will read what is displayed on your screen, whether it's a mobile phone or a computer. You have many of them. If you are using Windows, you have one inbuilt, which is the Windows narrator. You have commercial ones like JAWS and others, Windows Eye and NVDA, which is also a free software that help person with visual impairment to have access to information on the digital platform. And you have some also on a mobile phone, either Android phone or iPhone. So you have TalkBack on Android. You have what's the name again? What Sarah mentioned right now? Just a voiceover on iOS. Okay. So for those who have low vision, you have Zoom software because people if you talk about visual impairment, the majority are visual and are low vision. With age, many people are becoming low vision. There are big bosses there who are low vision, but they are just hiding behind their secretary and working. They don't, maybe because of maybe stigma or whatever, fear to lose their job. They don't want to say they have this kind of visual impairment. Because last time I met someone who came to the office, and then he said he has low vision, but I say he has to do some customize his computer a certain way before he can use a computer well. And he told me he can't do that. He's afraid that he'll lose his job because people will say that he cannot see again. So he'll not be able to work again. So he's there going back like this and suffering with what he has. Okay, so now not talk much. I'm just going to demonstrate how I use my computer. Okay, I use both the screen reader and the screen magnification software. But I'll start with the screen magnification, screen reader software. Okay, we use mainly keyboard. So I'm going to use my arrow keys. So
output, choose where to play sound. Smart TV selected. App Windows escape. Restore settings, close settings. Button. Taskbar.
Okay.
Items view multi-select list box. Windows D at list view. Control Shift S. Items view multi-select list box. Windows D folder view list view checked 42 of 48. Select a voice profile dialog default. Microsoft Mobile Factory SAPI 5X SAPI 5X Vocalizer Expressive.
Okay, I think it's some better.
Escape. JAWS Professional.
It's some better, right? Yeah, okay. So now I'm going to demonstrate how you use a computer with a screen reader. So whatever you touch on the keyboard, it will echo it. The screen reader software will echo it. So
search box edit.
So
pinned recommended. List box. User account for Matti Abbotti. 1 of 2.
Whatever I touch, it will just mention
Windows D.
Mention the name to me. So
JAWS Professional. JAWS Professional. JAWS version 2021 2102 34 ILM.
Okay, that is it. So if I have a Word document I want to read, or I can just
search box edit. WOR. War. Enter. JAWS Professional. Opening dash. Open. Recent list box. History of Ghana Basic School 3. 1. Anons 22. So what 200 and so what? No sweetness here 22. Anons 22. Anons 20. Revised underline ABC. Annex 2 revised underline ABC work plan underline. Annex 2 list of books for the GBU ABC project. Docs. Most recent.
Okay, it's also a document like this. I open.
Print. Edit.
So I'll be able to use the keyboard navigation to move in the documents. Once the cursor is moving on the screen, so the JAWS or my screen that will echo whatever JAWS is moving to.
Of ABC. Books.
You can see the screen move, the cursor moving,
blank.
And the JAWS
level 1
will mention it to you.
Series.
For instance, if I'm moving and I come across a graphic or a picture, and then the picture does not have any alternative text, JAWS will not be able to read it to me. I'm just doing that in Microsoft.
Alt F. Menu. Home. Alt Home. New blank document. Open. Recent tab. Alt followed by recent list box. History of Ghana. Anons 22. Anons 22 dash word. Edit.
You see, like this.
Picture 7 image.
You say just an image. It's not telling me what the image is about. Maybe it's a diagram. That will give me very important information. And then there's no alternative text to it. So I will not be able to have access to the information in even this Word document, for instance. And but you have internet, so that maybe I can demo. I'm not connected.
Okay.
So,
The internet is GDIW 2021.
Okay.
That's the password, GDIW 2021. Right. So I just want to emphasize
search box edit escape
on what he shared. And when COVID started, there were so many information around, but most of the content was not accessible to persons who were keyboard navigators.
List box task JAWS Professional documents
for the screen reader, right? So if we use an image and
Windows
on our
Plus
website, on our application,
system net All set items. Bluetooth. Manage Wi-Fi connect. Direct-1 Wi-CHP Direct-1 Adobe ISON Secured GDIW GDI Connect automatically. GDIW Connect button.
How a person with low vision can also use a computer. So see that I've made the screen quite large, the information on the screen. So I'm using a
Connect button.
Windows magnifier.
Connect button. 1 of 1. More Wi-Fi settings button. List box. So GDIW 2000.
Okay, all caps.
Caps lock on. Star. Num lock on.
See?
GDIW. Star.
Okay.
Star. Enter. Cancel button. 1 of 1. Windows escape. More Wi-Fi settings button. List box. Network UX.view model.setting entry. 1 of 11. C8 GDIW 2021 connected. Secured.
That I'm connected, though you'll not be able to
escape.
So I'm going to a website that maybe you visit frequently. Maybe myjoyonline.com to read news. And we'll see the experience there. So from now. I stop talking again. Can stop talking again now. Alright. Really just running out. Sorry for this discussion. Just want to see the justice. Hey, the justice there.
Jaws. Items view multi-select list box. Search box edit. CHROM.
Whatever I'm tapping it's saying it back, so it's echoing.
Chrome. Enter. Caps lock off. Items view list box. Items view multi-select list box. IAAP Introduction to Accessibility Updated 9
What is it opening?
List box. Anons ABC book. Annex to IAAP Introduction to Accessibility. Grammy Awards Olivia Rodrigo dominates nominations for 2022 BBC News Google Chrome. 7 of 12. Grammy Awards Olivia Rodrigo dominates nominations for 2000.
I'm just reading some BBC websites. Okay, so when I'm using only the arrow keys, when I arrow down, my screen that will read back what the arrow moves to.
BBC navigation region.
So this website, for instance, I would say is accessible because when I arrow down, for instance, it's telling me that I'm coming across a navigational region. So if I
link
want,
graphic
www.bbc. If I want to skip that and I want to move to a next section on the page, like how I can easily use my eyes to do it, I can just press a command on my keyboard.
Grammy Awards
so it moves me directly to the main content of the page. But if the website was not tagged properly, like a heading level 1, for instance,
Grammy Awards
I'll be forced to arrow down till I get the main content of the information. So if I'm...
Can you demonstrate that? Assuming they didn't have the right headers and you were to use only arrows till you get to the main content. So go back to the top content. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm on the top now. So if I want to read the main content of the page, I want to arrow down. So I'll be hearing some
items view multi.
It's not working fine. I don't know what's wrong today.
Published 8 hours ago.
Okay, let me go to the top.
Grammy Awards Olivia BBC navigate link graphic www.bbc graphic BBC list of 2 items visited same page link skip to link accessibility help list end list of 9 items link sign in link home visited link new link sport
so
link
I just
real
want to read the main information on the page, but look at what the screen that is
link work link travel link view more button list end link search BBC navigation region
let me
end.
Just explain it a bit. So what is happening here is this is a user of a website who just wants to access news. Now this user gets to the website and has to go through over 20 links before they get to the main content, because the web developer or the organization has not provided the opportunity for the user to be able to go directly to the main content. But BBC has done that. And so we just wanted you to see what it means if, assuming BBC didn't have skip to main content. Look at the time it would have taken the user. The user will be discouraged and will log off your website. And so if you're an e-commerce site that sells tomatoes and you have an old woman who wants to buy tomatoes but has arthritis and so relies on keyboard navigation, the old woman will have to keep tabbing through for very long before they can actually go and look at the prices of the tomatoes, which will be discouraging, right? And that is why accessibility is important as policymakers, as entrepreneurs, as developers. So please go ahead.
Alt D, toolbar, M, Y, J, O online, Mige, enter, google.com/search QE, Alt D, M, Y, J, O, Y, O, N, L, I, N, E. Mige, O, M, com, enter, context menu, new tab Control plus T, 1 of 19. H, history sub, escape, I. Context menu. New window control. Escape. Heading level 1 accessibility links. Search modes heading search results heading level 1. Web result with site links heading level 2.
So Google most of the time is accessible. That's why I'm able to jump from the top to the main content of the page.
myjoyonline.com-Ghana enter. myjoyonline-Google search Google Chrome. myjoyonline.com-Ghana's
So what the screen that will do, it will read from
one frame
A
for
to
region
Z.
MyJoy Online.
So it will read from the top of the page to the end. So that's how it works. So I'm going to scroll using my arrow keys or tab.
Visited unlabeled graphic 03/cropped-cropped- myjoyonline-logo.
This one graphic, it just mentions some random numbers to me. So I will not see the use of it. Maybe it's just a logo of my journal online that is there. But I don't have the access to that information.
Navigation region.
Unlike when you went to the BBC website, for instance, it will tell you logo of BBC or something like that.
List of 10 items. Visited current page link home. Link coronavirus. Visited link news. Link entertainment. Link business. Link sports. Link opinion. Link live. Link media. Visited link. List end. Navigation region end. Link.
You see link. I don't know what the link is about. I don't know if you are getting it. So
link.
Or should I switch the test viewer so that they can understand?
Heading level 4 link top story. Unlabeled graphic heading level 1 link classifier QFO-ADOS travel information as left quote top secret.
Okay, this is one of the link. I want to read that information. So I'll enter to open it. Second time.
Unlabeled heading level 1 link classifier QFO-ADOS travel information as left quote top secret right quote Brian Achimpong. myjoyonline.com-Ghana's most comprehensive website. Credible, fearless and independent. Classifier QFO-ADOS travel information as quote top secret quote Brian Achimpong myjoyonline.com.
So let me read the main content of the articles now. So
visited unlabeled navigation list of 10 items. Visited link her link core visited link new link enter link business classifier QFO-ADOS travel information as left quote top secret right quote Brian Achimpong heading level 1 source : myjoyonline the 24th of 1 button recommend button.
You see all this information I need to listen to before I get the main content of the page.
Unlabeled 1 button. Unlabeled 2 button. 10 frames, 2 regions, national.
There, right? But I don't know what is it. If I don't magnify it to see it, I will not be able to know what is it. So I'm just arrowing down.
Heading level 1 classify source : myjoy the 21 button. Recommend button. Unlabeled 1 button. Unlabeled 2 button. Unlabeled 3 button. Unlabeled 4 button. Unlabeled 5 button.
I don't know what is it actually.
Unlabeled 6 button. Unlabeled 7 button.
They could just change the reading order to make it like the cursor to move to the main content of the page so that I'll be able to.
Unlabeled 8 button. Unlabeled 9 button. Unlabeled 10 button. Listen button. Unlabeled graphic play button. Reading is so 2020 ... Settings button. Powered by.
You see, I just want to read some information, but I'm just arrowing down. I'm not getting it because the website is not well structured.
Link Trinity Audio. The chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament has asked the National Security Minister to classify information concerning the presidents.
It's not that he's reading it to me. So, it's to take
travels as top secret.
But like if you compare to the BBC website, for example, who was designed, well, so I just need to use a command to move there straight, and then I'll use my arrow key to read the information there. For instance, let's say I'm only low vision person, and then I don't use screen reader. So how will I read this website? I'll just use the zoom feature. Let's try the zoom feature on this website and see how it will work.
Alert, 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 alert. Zoom colon 300%.
You see how it's 10 to?
Sign into
So
editor.
I'll not be able
Dialogue.
to read it. If I had to read like how Deric was saying, I had to pan left, right, left, right, left, right before I have access to the information. So let's move back to the BBC website and try that option and see.
Alert, 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 control, alert. Zoom colon 80%. myjoyonline.com. myjoyonline dash Google search.
Yeah, I think we are back to BBC, right? Okay, now.
BBC navigation region.
See now,
Who's up for the biggest prizes heading left? Grammy Awards Olivia by Mark Sapp, BBC Music correspondent. Definition list of 1 items. Grammy Awards Olivia Rodrigo by Mark Savage. BBC Music definition list of what published 8 hours ago. List end. Share button men related topic list of 1 item link grab by Mark's BBC Music correspondent definition list of published 8 hours ago. List end. Share button men related list of 1 link Grammy Award list end. Group start image caption Olivia Rodrigo graphic.
so it's telling me the image of the person that they were talking about. So it's his picture that is
The
showing.
18-year-old is up for Best Album, Best New Artist,
I'll try the
Record
zoom
of the
picture
Year
and
and
see
Song
how
of the
the
Year
page will
for driver's
be
license.
restructured. It will be reflowing.
Alert, 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 alert. Zoom colon 175 close. Push button. Grammy Awards colon Olivia Rodrigo dominates nomination. Alert, alert, alert. Zoom colon 300%.
All the information is at the middle of the page.
But
So
also
it's only my site. I should be able to read it because it's a dynamic website, so it's able to reflow depending on what the navigation command I'm using.
Right. So I'll just sort of like give a summary of what has just been demonstrated. What he just did was someone with low vision needs to magnify the screen. But with a My Joy Online website, when he magnifies, some of the information is lost. So he has to keep dragging from left to right. It makes the reading very difficult and very discouraging for the user. But when we went to the BBC website, we just realized that with one magnification, the content readjusts itself and presents it in a perfect fit to screen for the user
Alert.
who is able to access the content. Right. Similarly, when he was trying to have access, when he was trying to just read very, very simple news item, he had to go through a long list of links, and even some of the links were not properly labeled with the social media. Right. So there are many things that we are doing in our digital ecosystem, but we have to be mindful that there are about 20 to 25% of our customers who may not use the computers like we do, or who may not use the mobile phones like we do. So we cannot design or we cannot build Ghana's ecosystem, digital ecosystem, assuming everybody is a sighted user or assuming everybody can hear. Right? Even as we are in this room that I'm speaking, someone may be around who may have some hard of hearing challenges and may need to rely on translator to be able to convert everything I'm speaking into captions, right? So the alarm we are trying to sound is that as we are heading towards a digitized economy or a digitized Ghana, we need to be mindful that there are about 20 to 30% of users who do not use the computer, or customers who do not use the computer or smartphone like everybody does. They may need to use only the keyboard or use the refreshable braille. This is an example of a refreshable braille. It has the braille buttons on top, and it reads, so you can connect the refreshable braille to the computer, and it will print out every information online on the refreshable braille. Now, if you have a website that, for example, assuming a website to book a flight, and the flight is not compatible, the website is not compatible with the braille device, how would the person be able to book? For example, so I got to Ghana last night around 11, 12, and when I got to the airport, I saw about 10 wheelchair users who were being supported to take their baggage. And the first thing that came to mind was, how long are they going to, how much time are they spending at the airport? Has Ghana been able to do like an accessibility audit for persons who are wheelchair users or persons with disability and their experience at the airport? How can we ensure that we are creating an accessible airport experience such that the fact that you are in a wheelchair doesn't mean that you have to spend 3 hours extra because nobody is there to help you pick up your bag, right? So when we talk about accessibility, it is beyond ramps, it's beyond buildings. It is an entire experience. It's about usability. It's about ensuring that we can access more customers and make more money, right? So the next bit of our workshop, which is more also practical, we are going to have the lead of accessibility training and support at Tech Era, who is going to teach us how can we, very simple tips on how we can make our platforms accessible. So Joseph, if you are here, kindly help set up whilst we take you through. And please let's give a hand to Mr. Mati Abochi, who is
alert.
head of accessibility at head of assistive technology at the Ghana Blind Union. And please, if you want to engage him further, right after the session, you can be able to do that. This will be the last part of the session, and then we'll end.
Mr. Abochi went through my Join Online, which is a news website, and walked you through the experience of how someone with low vision or someone who is visually impaired would experience such a website. Let's say something is happening in Ghana and he receives a link on WhatsApp and he also wants to know what is happening. And that's the experience he has to go through. He has to tap through our 30 links just to read what's going on. And if he's not fortunate and the website is not so accessible, the website will not be structured well, and then he'll be reading it, but it's not going to be a good experience. So that's, and he also mentioned about images. Okay, so I'm going to start with the perceivableness of a website. So you could open, let's say, Peace FM online. Okay, so one of the main things in terms of building an accessible website is providing alternative text alternatives. Okay, so what that means is that you want your website to be perceived even by someone who cannot see. So if you have an image, the person is going to hear what the image is about. And so the images on the website need to have what we call alt text. Okay, alt short for alternative text, so that when the screen reader is reading what the image is about, the person can also perceive what is going on. But unfortunately, most websites don't provide alt text. So you remember Mr. Bochi mentioned that there's a graphic there, but he doesn't know what the graphic is. So if there's a diagram, if there's a chart, he doesn't know what it is about. I hope you guys are following. Yes. So but that can be simply solved by adding just an attribute in HTML. Sorry about the technical challenges. So another level of it is when you have, say, a video on the website. So someone who cannot see what the video is about needs to have alternative options of knowing what's happening. So the person needs captions on the video. So if you don't provide captions as well, you are limiting the person. So if you go to okay, so this is Peace FM Online. So what I'm going to do is to use an accessibility evaluation tool to go through the website and pick out some of the accessibility errors, okay, that we've talked about. So just so that you see how it plays out on the website. So first thing to note, you see a lot of errors with the links. Okay, so these links are the headers, the menu for the website. So we have the home, local news, politics, and all of that. And when you click on the link, you see that it says it's missing alternative text. So when someone hovers over it, the person will the screen reader will just read out the link. Maybe peacefmonline.com/this, but will not tell the person that this is going to the home page. So by just adding just a property, alt home, just to that element, you solve this problem. Okay, so we have other problems like color contrast. So there is a default contrast that needs to be used when you are developing a website or just basically using colors in any design or anything. And there's a ratio of 4.5:1 for the AA compliance level. Okay, so when we look at this, maybe for most of us, we can see that there's white text on a green background. Okay, but then when you actually check it, you realize that it's actually very poor contrast. So if I could just open up my color contrast checker. You made it. So if you can follow me, so I'm just going to check for the header. So I'm picking the background color. Where's the mouse? So you can see that I picked the green. And then I pick the white text. And you see that it tells me here that it's failed. I don't know if you can see this. Please, can you see it? Yes. So it's actually 2.7, which is about half what we need. So generally, a rule of thumb is that if you're having white text on a colored background, the color, you should use a darker shade of that background. So if I could just make this color, the more I make the green darker, you see that the contrast becomes good. I don't know if you notice it. Yes. So color contrast, we have a lot of poor color contrast in many websites. And like another thing Mr. Bochi mentioned, this is the heading of the article. Kofi Capito goes wild over senseless e-levy. Why must I pay for government inefficiency? So as the title of the article, it must have the first level of a heading, which is H1. Okay, but here you see that they use H2. So when the screen reader goes through the website, it will not pick out any heading. So he wouldn't know where to start. I don't know if you're following. So, but just by changing this heading level to heading 1, we solve that problem. Then next up, every other sub heading should be organized properly. So, for example, if yes, so you see that the heading 3 is on the side, which is the sidebar. Okay, which is not good practice. Yes, keep scrolling. You keep scrolling. Give me an image. Okay, so over here, you see that this image has alternative text. Okay, so you can see that it says bleaching creams. You know what's, but then bleaching creams is not what is in the image. Okay, the image shows a woman with her hands up, but then the alternative text says bleaching cream. So although they've provided it, you see it's marked green by the software, but it's not good accessibility because the person wouldn't know. The person would think that it's maybe a cream tube or something, which is actually not what is going on there. Good. Let's go to the... If you can see at the bottom here, you see that they use a lot of H3 tags. Okay. All of them for one page. Okay, we have about 102. Meaning that they put 102 headings on the same level, which is very bad. Okay, so I think we can move to another website. BC students just finished exams. Many of them will be checking their results. So let's check that out, ghana.waecdirect.org, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, and with these websites, I want to dwell a bit more on forms. So with many websites, with many softwares, you have to log in, you have to enter some information. If you're buying things online, you have to enter information. So let's see how this website has implemented accessibility guidelines. Okay, so right up, I see that they are missing a number of alternative text. The logo itself doesn't have alternative text, and then the image on the right doesn't have any alt text. And then I see that 4 of the form elements don't have labels. So when someone who is using a screen reader goes through it, they will just know that this is a text field, but they wouldn't know what to enter into it, which is a very big problem. So every text field, every drop down, every radio button should have a label. And it's interestingly, it's not anything difficult to do. It's just writing label equals this. Okay, but many people overlook it, many people don't do it, and it causes a big problem. So if someone with low vision, someone with visual impairment is going through this form, they'll struggle a lot to use it because they wouldn't know what to enter. They wouldn't know where to put their index number. They wouldn't know which one is day, which one is month, which one is year. You can see that the whole form has errors. Okay, so, and you can see that the contrast thing comes here again, but I've already demonstrated it, so I wouldn't dwell much on it. Yes. So, I mean, I guess you have a feel of how the elements on a website may bring up problems for experience, and this is just using an accessibility tool. So you can use this just to have an idea of, okay, what are the problems? Where is the color contrast not good? Where is it good? What can I improve? Which label have I left out? Because if you are developing a website, there are lots of pages. As a developer, benefit of the doubt, you may forget to label something. But when you have this tool in hand, you can see and say that, okay, I left this label here, let me put it there. But just a caution that this is not a full accessibility audit of your website, okay, because this doesn't give you the human element of it. So although there may be a color contrast issue, although you might have put, like we saw in the image, although you might have put the alt text there, you see that it's a wrong alt text, and which this tool wouldn't tell you that it's a wrong alt text. So you need a human level to it to correct certain things, to identify certain mistakes that this automation tool doesn't help with. Okay, so I think I would here hand over to Deric to talk a little bit about our audits. Yeah.
All right, so I just want to thank you for staying through to this point. I just also want to emphasize that this is only like a 2% of what accessibility really is. And just as you see the issues on a very, very crucial website, this website has been in use for over how many years? I used it when I wrote my BSc, right? But there are so many other students who may have low vision, who may need assistive technologies to access this, and then there are so many challenges that they face, right? Similarly, in our banking institutions, the banking apps, in our educational institutions, in our even government institutions, right? In the mobile apps we even develop, if you're a developer here or you're an entrepreneur here, you have a mobile app, you need to understand that 20 to 25% of your target customers or beneficiaries are persons who may need accessibility, right? So we hope that this session, we have been able to give you an overview or an idea or an appreciation of what accessibility is and why accessibility is important. And I think that when we talk about digitization and digital economy, driving digitization agenda, we cannot talk about it without talking about accessibility. Accessibility cannot be an afterthought. It becomes more costly when you have to now do an audit and do a remediation and have to now make your website accessible. But when you are building your website and you start with accessibility, or when you're even building an app, or when you're even designing any program, and you factor accessibility in the design of the program, in the documentation, in the print, it goes a long way to make sure that your event is accessible, and it helps you to think about everybody. It saves you money, and it also brings you revenue, right? So I want to also mention that Tech Era provides accessibility consultancy with web accessibility, also accessibility in terms of organizational accessibility, events, programs, anything that you want and you want to think about accessibility, we are happy to talk to you. We are able to do audits. In fact, we even do free audits. So if you have an organization here and you want to access, oh, we have a mobile app, but you are thinking about ensuring that your app is accessible, you can come and talk to us and we can take a look at it. And our audits are done in 4 different levels. We do the automated testing, which is what we have done. And then we do the actual testing, where we have Machi Abbotti, who is our consultant, looking at your website as a low vision and visually impaired person. And then we also do the scripted testing, where we go through the entire list of the World Content Accessibility Guideline, and we compare everything to the AA compliance level. And then we have the functional test, where we actually look at what your website wants to do and whether it's being able to be achieved, whether irrespective of my disability. So these are the 4 main tests that we do, and we are really, really hoping that we can be able to lead the accessibility conversation in Ghana and across Africa. Right. So thank you so much for coming for this workshop. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions you want to ask before we bring this to an end? Any questions? All right. So I want to thank our guests, Mr. Machi Abbotti, and oh, I've just forgotten your name. Sarah, yes. Thank you so much. We had Farida earlier with us, and then we also had Joseph, who was here, and we have Chantal, who is also works with Tekera, and Delson also works with Tekera. We are happy to engage with you after the session if you have time. Thank you for coming and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.